Here, Robert. Thank you so much for being our IT guy. So far, so good. So I'm seeing, I think, hi, Renee. Renee, can you hear
guys.
us? Hi, how are you?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. So basically, I'll just take a roll call. We have David Styler, Dave Finch, Maria Corso, Tim Whitney, Dan Sarnoff, our assistant village manager. Thanks, Dan, for filling in. I appreciate you being here. Christy Young, Martin Hain, William Long, our new planning director, welcome. Dan Natchez, our trustee liaison, Dan Kushnick, and David Friedman, excuse me. It's showing up as my name.
I don't know how to change my name, but
and Renee. So are we missing anyone? I can't even remember anymore. I think everybody's here. Well, I hope everybody's been well, and I'm glad that we were able to get together via Zoom tonight. I'm happy that we're able to resume our work. Can everybody hear me? If there's any issues, you could use the chat function, which I'm following, or just raise your hand. Okay, so as always, our first order of business will be to, it seems like a long time ago, to review the minutes from our last meeting, which was February. So I don't know, Renee, actually, I never was able to see the minutes. I'm having a lot of computer issues. I'm actually having a new one on order. But if anybody,
sorry.
Was able to read them and wants to, if anyone has comments, hopefully you gave them to Renee, or you can give them to her now. If not, I'd like to get a motion to approve them.
so move.
Second.
Okay.
So,
So
Alan, do you want to go through some quick housekeeping issues about how to use Zoom properly? Because everybody's unmuted right now, and they should really be muted until they want to talk. And, you know, teach them how to change their names and different things like that. Do you want to? I can do
well,
that.
I'm not a Zoom specialist, so
Well,
I don't know how to tell people how to change their names. Robert, if you want to do an IT session here, I don't want to spend a lot of time with that.
It won't take long. I can actually do it in 5 seconds. So,
oh, sure. Go ahead, Martin.
So everybody, at the bottom of your window, you'll see a thing that says participants. If you click on that, a pop-up window will come up and you will be at the top of that name list. So if you are Ellen Silver, it'll say me in parentheses next to it. You mouse over it and there will be a thing that says more next to it, and you can click on that more, and then there's something that says change your name. You can rename using that. And then as
Martin,
far as
a small footnote. I'm on an iPad. Your instructions are not relevant.
well, they
But
are
I know
because
how to do it. But if anybody else is on an iPad, they ought to know they have to go to the top, not to the bottom.
Well, David, if
Okay.
there's also there's a little blue window. If you hover over your own image, a little blue opportunity window will open up, and with some 3 dots, and you can click on it and do the same thing.
That's correct. That was the next thing I was going to say. And then,
Sorry.
yeah, and then everybody has their mute option. So everybody should be muted until they're ready to speak, because all the background noise from where you're at comes through the speaker.
Everyone appears to be renamed right now to the proper.
Okay, so I'm going to stay throughout, not on mute, and there shouldn't be any noise where I am. But if everyone can mute, and then obviously if you want to say something, just unmute yourself. Okay. So Renee, if you could send those minutes to Sally Roberts and Robert Ingenito, and they will put that up on the village website. Renee? Okay.
Yeah, I will do.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. So let's just get that out of the way. Anyway, just because we haven't seen each other and there's just been so much going on, I just thought it would be interesting to share observations and thoughts about COVID-19's impact on the environment, and just maybe share personal experiences of how everybody's feeling about that. And I don't mind leading with that. one which was just tonight. So, you know, throughout I've done a tremendous amount of cooking, but I find that when we have ordered in or even being with other people, it just seems that we've sort of gone backwards with the whole thing of single-use utensils and paper and all that, which is frustrating to me. So I understand that, you know, there's an issue with the virus and germs, and you have to counterbalance that. But just all this single-use stuff, I'm just finding just discouraging. And I actually, when I was just placing my order at this place, I specifically said, please, I don't want utensils. They gave me the utensils. And when I went to give them back, they said they can't take them back because I touched, they were in plastic, but they couldn't take it back. So I'm just finding that to be very frustrating that, you know, we made so much progress on, you know, getting, you know, with the bag, you know, the reusable bag laws and all that. And it just seems that hopefully it's just a hiatus, but so that's just sort of like a negative. But on the positive, I just feel like obviously I think people are driving less and buying less stuff and making do. And I'm really realizing for myself, you know, we just don't need all that stuff. It's fine not having it. And so in that way, I think it's a little more back to basics. So that's sort of my positive. We've also been doing, as I said, a lot of home cooking. So a lot of composting. Thank goodness for ASAP. Those guys are amazing. And yeah, those are my thoughts. So I'll pass it off to Dave since he's just sort of next to my gallery of people. Dave Finch.
We've got so many Daves and Davids.
I know, I have to be specific.
I wasn't sure it was me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I won't spend, you know, I've been able to spend a lot of time in my garden, and I've got a lot of garden, and I'm very pleased with what I'm able to get done. I'm doing a little online mentoring of students in Yonkers through a volunteer operation. My men's group is doing pretty well in meeting weekly, having its weekly programs. I'm the communications officer, so I'm involved in that. I guess the only thing that's relevant at this point is the background you see right now is I happen to be on Cape Cod for the week. We haven't dared to visit my wife's house until now. So now we're trying to catch up with everything that hasn't been done all this time. Of course, we canceled the cruise. We canceled the family visit to the Catskills. So yes, lots of change.
Okay, thank you. Maria, you want to go?
Unmute.
Okay.
Well, my life's changed a lot being in real estate and not being able to show. Although things were going on, we just weren't going inside with them. But really just very, very cautious and then still doing things. And I'm really happy about like the oceans and how everything is just taking a reset, which I'm sure Martin's going to talk a lot about. So I'm happy in that respect that kind of like we're going, I know with single use it's a problem, but I feel that, you know, we're conserving more the environment because of less use. So that's a positive. My daughter was stuck in Portugal alone, my 18-year-old, thank goodness in our apartment, but you know, for 4 months. So she just arrived for a visit. So that's nice. So yeah, no vacations, but you know, I have a garden and we did, you know, we're careful, but social distancing and having that outside space. And I was so happy to see people at the harbor and ordering and just going with picnics because I always feel it's so underused. And I was like, I hope it doesn't go back, you know, once the restaurants are open, because it was really nice to see, you know, for the most part, people were social distancing, but just using all that outdoor space that we take for granted. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah, that is
So, and it made a sense of community. So that was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Styler, you want to go?
Yeah, I've been gardening like Dave a lot and like also Maria. And so that's taken a lot of my time. So, you know, I've become obsessed about it. And I go to the marshlands a lot and it got kind of trashed out because a lot of people were using it, especially in the beginning of this pandemic. And so I've been picking up a lot of garbage, and I got invited to join the board of directors of the Friends of the Marshlands. So I have this kind of responsibility also. And I've been Zoom teaching at the center in the Community Resource Center for a few classes. So I've been doing that in person, and then we went to Zoom. So I've been doing that too. So I'm actually really happy. This is, I really have no problem with this social distancing or anything. I think it's a good opportunity to do things you want to do.
Just, I know this is, what are you teaching at the Community Resource Center?
English, but sort of like, you know, very elementary English, kind of ESL stuff, although I wasn't an ESL teacher, but basically doing ESL for students, most of them close to middle age, maybe. So
Okay.
that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you.
Keeps me going.
Thank you for sharing. Tim, how about you? Any observations about what this pandemic's done for the environment, for you personally?
Yeah, same. Spending a lot more time in the yard. Grateful to be in Mamaroneck with a yard and not in Brooklyn on the 29th story of an apartment tower, going through all this, where we were about 2 years ago. The big update in my life was that we had a baby in April.
Congratulations.
So yeah, so it's been amazing. It's been a lot of fun, and the quarantine has kind of been a little bit of a blessing in that it's really just given us a lot of time to be the three of us and focus on that and spend time together. And related to the internet, you know, or sort of the environment, you know, something similar I was reading about earlier today. I go up to the Adirondacks a lot, and reading the Adirondack Club adopting some new rules, looking forward in time, expecting a continued high use and traffic of the 46s and the high peaks and all the trails, and that there's a lot of people who are going for the first time, maybe don't have the training on carry in, carry out, or what the proper etiquette or way to use these spaces or the camping sites is. And so they're trying to avoid going to like a permitting system. But I just find that interesting. Like the outdoors is getting a lot of extra use. Their public spaces are getting an extra use. I'd be curious to know, like, if there's any information about Saxon Woods Park and what, you know, the traffic was over there in May and June. I can tell you in March, anecdotally in March, it was pretty busy.
Yeah, I've been there a lot with my dog. It's busy.
Yeah. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot too. How to, you know, maybe, you know, is there a public education element or something that could help encourage good stewardship of those spaces,
Yeah.
or creation of new ones?
So you're gonna tell us, girl, boy, name?
Oh, yeah, it's a boy. His name is Arthur, and now, yeah, he's just over 3 months old now.
Oh, congratulations! That's great.
Thank you.
Christy, hey, what's going on with you?
Hi, hello, and Tim, I'm thrilled. So I'm so excited, and and I think that in the way that he's traveled and sort of observed backwards, I have been out of Mamaroneck since the 13th of March, roughly, early March. Basically, the schools closed that weekend. We packed up and we've been in Vermont all of this time. My husband went back once, and but we're essentially enjoying low population density and an opportunity that we never foresaw how valuable it would be. So I feel very disconnected from the village right now, in the sense that it's amazing what a number of months away and a high degree of learning has sort of changed my focus. But all the relative topics of, yes, the disposable issue and food purchasing, what we deal with here is we have no curbside pickup. So anything that we consume, don't consume, trash, it all has to be loaded into our car and taken, including compost. And as of July 1st, Vermont made it illegal to put food waste into the trash. And we were composting anyway, but it's really interesting to see the implications and, you know, and the adaptations of the general public trying to adhere to it and what their options are. So, you know, it's curious. It's curious. I mean, obviously there's recycling, but when you have to haul your own refuse and or manage it in some way, it really gives you a serious appreciation for what it really takes, because you can't dismiss it, you can't ignore it, it doesn't go away. And so I've been interested in learning about it, and I've been interested in learning that, you know, how the state of Vermont includes educational facilities and their decision-making processes and how they do this. And so, you know, I've had a nice fresh stream of information, but I do miss where we are, and we expect and hope to be back in September in hopes of some form of school participation of some form. And that's sort of my current tense, but I'm glad to have this refocus. I think it's time. I think I'm really excited that we can reconvene and do so. And I think that, you know, like anything, this is hopefully an opportunity for change and improvement, because, you know, who doesn't want in our world, in our circle, more bike lanes and more outdoor eating and, you know, more public spaces and more thoroughfares between communities so that we can migrate without cars, you know, because I think that those are really the things that we can hopefully push forward at this point in time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Actually, it'd be interesting to get your Vermont experience, you know, more in depth when you get back, because living in that kind of environment, and especially to your point, not having anything curbside, where we take everything for granted, you really have to think about, where is this going? Because I'm bringing it, wherever it's going, I'm bringing it.
Whatever I bring home from what I purchase, I have to carry out myself, and I load it in the car, and you know what I mean? So it just puts a reality check on it, which is good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been, you know, the only downside of this is that my son, we're considering a trip to Maine just to go hit some salt water for a weekend, just to try going somewhere else. But my son is completely spoiled because he thinks that biking and hiking and sailing and swimming and kayaking, and like, he thinks everybody does this every day, and he has no idea what the reality of majority of the people's summers are like. It's not like this at all. And so, you know, my challenge is trying to gauge information and you know, and still let kids be kids.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Okay, Martin, how about you? Other than your new hair.
Other than my new hair, I've actually had this since Easter. I did this for my, I have a 6-year-old goddaughter, and we couldn't get together for Easter. We usually do a yearly Easter egg hunt. So it was my sort of homage, and everybody seems to like it so far, so it might stay for a while. We'll see. Yeah.
I don't think Dave Finch.
Except for David Finch, but you know, he's not my audience. So but a lot of interesting things have been happening at Save the Sound. Obviously, we've been on top of all the issues that have been happening since the pandemic has started. And actually, just to keep things short and sweet, one of the biggest things that we've sort of noticed and have had reported to us is all this PPE that people are just throwing everywhere. Masks, you know, people come out of the grocery stores and just throw their mask on the parking lot and don't put it in a trash can. And a lot of it's ending up in the Sound, so that's a really big issue. And the other thing is, because of all these graduations that are happening as single events instead of multiple events, there are a lot of balloons ending up in the Sound, because there are large groups of them being released individually from people's yards instead of like one event happening and then, you know, maybe 10 being like go. So balloons and PPE are our biggest enemy right now. But I'm Donald Trump, of course, with some of the things that he's doing with the administration. But you know, my biggest focus, I think, from now through November is just to get people to vote, because I think that's going to be the biggest thing that is going to affect anybody who loves the environment.
Amen. Okay. Daniel, wanna go?
It seems like Groundhog Day around here. Every day is kind of the same. I do notice a lot bluer skies and a lot more wildlife, just birds, chipmunks, which I never recall seeing that much, just locally. I've been kayaking out in the Sound, and that's been fun. And I'm immunocompromised, so I'm limited as to where I can go and wearing a mask. I've been wearing masks and using Purell for the last year, so I was a little ahead of the curve with all of this. But so my world, I get out, but I don't get out that I don't hook up with people that much because of my compromised immune system. But it's good. I have all three of my kids who are 23, 24, and 29 are home with us. So it's a little tight, a little too much togetherness sometimes, but it's better to have them here than where, out and not knowing where they are. So, but that's basically it.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Renee.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't know how good my connection is, you guys, but I'm in Canada with a very not a great connection. So I won't talk long. And if I drop off, somebody else is going to have to take minutes. Okay.
Okay. Got a deal.
Hoping that doesn't happen. But
okay.
Anyway, I've been up here for about 3 or 4 weeks. You have to quarantine for the first 2 weeks that you're up here. The government checks in on you. There's a $750,000 fine if they catch you breaking quarantine. So they're taking it pretty seriously. Yeah. So anyway, we're through with that, and I've gotten to visit with my mom and dad and my sisters and stuff. So it's been great. And we're up here for probably another 3 weeks before we head back.
Okay.
So I'm feeling like Christy, a little disconnected from the village at the moment, but we'll be back.
Okay. Dave Friedman.
So my big takeaway on this for myself is that I'm working from home and do not miss going into the office at all, which is great for the environment on some level. I'm using fewer resources, I'm driving less, but I'm also not taking public transportation. So I'm wondering if a lot of people end up feeling like I do and deciding they don't have to commute anymore, what's it going to do to the MTA if everybody gives up their monthly pass and doesn't use the subways? So it's really a mixed blessing, I guess, environmentally, for everybody to be working from home. My big adventure was we decided we wanted to visit our son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren in Atlanta, and Delta does no longer flies from White Plains Airport, so we drove 15 hours each way.
Wow.
Same day, because we didn't want to stop anywhere.
Oh
and the interesting thing about that is through Virginia, you stopped at a rest area and everybody was wearing their masks and being very conscientious. And you hit the North Carolina border and it was like a free-for-all. You went in, places were filthy, nobody was wearing masks. And it was really we're living in a little bubble up here where people are wearing masks much more conscientiously than at least a lot of other places in the country. It was pretty shocking to me to see that.
That's why this thing is not going away. Dan Natchez, you want to say hello and give us some impressions?
Well, the village is, the world may have slowed down, but the village has had to pick up its pace to keep in pace and keep everything in place. We've given out over thousands of face masks. We've had, I think the board has been working harder now than we've ever worked, and with more and more meetings. And I got to tell you, Zoom is a real issue for those who are electronically challenged like myself. But otherwise, things are good. environmentally. I'm getting out, enjoying the water as much as I possibly can. The village has a lot to offer. The parks are being constantly used. For the most part, they're being used in a socially acceptable manner. There are a few exceptions. We've done I think, a really great job in trying to open up in a way that is meaningful, and the staff deserves a lot of credit for the endless hours that they've had to put into accomplishing.
Yeah, and it's nice. I haven't been on the avenue yet for outdoor dining, but I've seen pictures and that's nice to see. So whoever, oh, Dan Sarnoff, want to chime in here?
Sure. You know, as a village, so many of our services are, you know, essential services. So for a lot of the staff, you know, their jobs didn't change. I mean, we were still out there fixing potholes, collecting garbage, police, fire, code enforcement had to do a lot of new things over the last several months. But it's been nice to see the level of support that, you know, all of the, especially the essential workers are seeing from the village. Yeah, they've seen pictures that kids drew on garbage cans for the sanitation crews to see. So it's been an interesting couple of months. You know, we had to, a lot of our, we all hate the term non-essential staff because in a local government, you know, everyone is pretty much essential. We're all here to serve the residents. But, you know, we had to send the majority of our non-essential staff home, and you know, we, over the course of a couple of weeks, were able to, you know, our T staff was pulled off a miracle and making a seamless transition, allowing people to work from home, you know, fixing up laptops, Chromebooks, anything they get their hands on, and allowing people to access all the village systems from their homes and get their work done. So it's been a interesting couple of months.
Is the village office open now, or are you guys still working from home?
No, all of the staff is back to work. The offices themselves are not open, but you know, we have the option if we can schedule appointments with people. Haven't really done that yet, but the court offices are opening up on Tuesday the 28th for Tuesday next Tuesday for arraignments, and we're going to be, you know, having a walkthrough to see how everything works. But you know, the open meetings law has been temporarily suspended for the next month until August. So you know, we're kind of using that as a guideline to talk about our opening. We also talked about the opening with Town of Mamaroneck and Village of Larchmont last week, possibly by Labor Day, but really can't make any guarantees at this point.
Thank you. William, do you want to say anything tonight? I know you're new, but you're welcome to participate.
Well, I mean, basically, I just want to say that, you know, I look forward to working with you all in the village and, you know, continuing the growth of the village through the comprehensive plan and, you know, take it from there. So again, thank you and thank you for having me.
Okay. And I think last but not least, Robert.
Hi, everyone. Again, sorry that you can't see me, but my computer doesn't have a camera. You can all hear me though, right?
Yes, we can.
So you know, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a resident of the village, and I moved here about 2 years ago. And shortly after moving here, I joined in a volunteer, just like all of you, the Environment Committee, and got to know Ellen and the various Davids, and really enjoyed a lot of the work that this group does. And then I joined also the village's new ad hoc communications committee along with Martin Hain and some other folks. And through that work, a small little part-time position was crafted that I applied for and got to be the village's public information officer. And I started this job in January of this year. And it was, you know, kind of a nice little thing, write little press releases. We were getting ourselves ready for the US Golf Open that was supposed to happen in June. And I was getting a brochure ready to talk about the inundation of golf fans that were going to be coming here. And then all of a sudden, late February, March comes around and the whole thing kind of came to a standstill. And let me see if I can share my screen here. Since the village and since we went into this, you know, pandemic period, we were just kind of pushing out messaging after message pretty much on a daily basis. And this was a lot of the stuff that I did about, you know, parks, garbage pickup, things that I had no idea I would be getting involved with when I started this job. You know, we have a very lot of information that we've just been pushing out into the public about, you know, things regarding the Stephen E. Johnston beach and, you know, usage of the playgrounds, and when the playgrounds were closed, oh, the playgrounds are back to being open now, and just a lot of material that was going out there, things about from Community Resource Center, things about food pantry and providing food to our neighbors who needed assistance. So it was just a really kind of experience for me to kind of get a sense of how this community was dealing and handling the coronavirus pandemic. So if you get a chance, by all means, I encourage folks to check out the village's website. Go to, you know, Village of Mamaroneck and go to the COVID-19 section, and you can see really like a lot of the stuff that our village has been working on and sharing with its residents. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I've been up to for the past couple of months. Personally, our home yard has never been so well pruned. I wouldn't go as far as to say that we're great gardeners, but we're certainly learning, and it's really been a great experience going out there with my wife and our little daughter and learning about all the different plants and learning how to prune, which has been good. So.
Thank you, Robert. Actually, that all looks great, and I confess I haven't really been actively using the village website, but I will definitely visit more. I don't know that I knew all that was there, so that's good to know. I'm just curious, is the village tracking the number of cases of coronavirus? Is that something that we would find on the website?
Dan will probably want to chime in on that piece.
Yeah, we get information from Westchester County. They get it from New York State. We are not the public health mechanism that tracks this information. It's really the State Department of Health and the County Department of Health. They'll give us information. There's been information that's been posted in the Journal News dealing with raw totals. I know that I think, if not the last meeting, the meeting before that, County Executive Latimer came on to the meeting and talked a bit about it. I think he said at that point there were something like 12 active cases in the community. But that's the type of information we have. We really don't get involved with the public health aspect of it, because that's not our, we don't have the staff to do that.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. I think it just was good to hear from everyone, and it's been a while, but I'll just sort of go into the agenda for now in no particular order. I got a few requests for the agenda, but mostly it's stuff that's coming from the collaborative, which I'll get into. But I guess the first up is to get an update on the mosquito program. And I know on the website, there was a post from June 8th, sort of at the beginning of the season. So maybe Dan, you could just share a little bit about, I know anecdotally, I hadn't had any bites until last night. So that's been all personal experience.
So, and I will admit, I'm not actively involved in the program, but I've been getting emails the last several weeks. It seems to be a good year in terms of the mosquito population not being that large, not being that aggressive. We haven't had to use the fogging machine at all this year so far. The landing counts seem to be pretty low, relatively, 1 to 2 per minute. I think I may have forwarded an email from or some information from Dave Ballone, who's our applicator, and Mr. Ninavaji, who is our consultant. He used to run the Nassau County Mosquito Control Program. So he has a wide breadth of experience. I think to date, all we've used so far is the Vectobac G, which is a low impact product. We applied the larvicide in the catch basins at the end of May and early June. Like I said, all the evidence I've seen so far seems to indicate that it's a pretty calm year for the mosquitoes. And after the experience we had 2 years ago, it's nice to see a couple of good years in a row where it doesn't seem to be a major issue.
I haven't heard anything about West Nile in Westchester. I don't know if anybody, maybe it's gotten just crowded out by other news, but I haven't heard anything about that, which is good.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that either. If there's anything, again, the County Department of Health will notify us if anyone tests positive for West Nile.
Yes, that sounds good. So there's been no spraying, you're saying?
None as of yet. And based on, I think I sent you the email from Mr. Ninavaji.
Yeah.
About, I had a request from someone from Soundview, and he did follow-up inspection. He said, it really doesn't seem like there's much of an issue, and maybe with any luck we may not have to fog this year. But it's like I said, every data point seems to indicate that we're in a good position.
Yeah. Dave Freeman, I know this is an issue of particular interest to you. Do you have anything you want to ask or add?
No, I concur that it hasn't been a bad season for mosquitoes, but I think the fact that we are staying on top of it and sending around information to the community. I got a flyer at the beginning of the mosquito season, and I think we're way ahead of where we were a couple of years ago in terms of our preparedness and our communication, which is a good thing.
That's a result of a board policy that they established a couple of years ago, requesting that at the beginning of each season, we notify the residents in the areas that we treat. So this is the second year we've done that, and I think it's a good way to advise the public of what could be happening over the course of the several months of the program.
I have a quick question. Dan, were the catch basins cleaned out and stuff this year as well?
So yes, the catch basin, we do clean catch basins. We didn't clean every catch basin this year, but we did apply the larvicide in all the catch basins. Is that the question you're asking?
This is Dan Natchez. We have a very aggressive program of cleaning the catch basins. We did a lot last year. We did a lot this spring. Each catch basin that's been cleaned, has been treated with larvicide, and that has helped dramatically in keeping the mosquito population down. The weather, the lack of rain, which has not been good for basically the shrubs and many parts of the environment, has been great for the mosquito population not populating. A lot of the bird baths, et cetera, have been dry. People have, been very careful about this. So it's been very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because last year, I believe Jerry was the first year Jerry really went after the catch basins, and I do think it's really made a difference this year.
Yeah, we bought a new piece of equipment to help on that, and that's being done quite aggressively. And all of them will have been cleaned, I believe, in 2 more years. When I don't remember the number, but there are over 1,000, I believe, catch basins. I don't remember what the number is in the village.
No, it's approximately, I think you're right, about 1,000 or 1,100, give or take.
Yeah, so it's a lot of catch basins. So the ones that continue to get filled up get cleaned more often. The others are being cleaned on, and it's being tracked and monitored, which is important, which was not done before.
Just on a tiny side note, and not to carry on too long, but the property that we're on here in Vermont, we have the state and the local governments have a lot of restrictions on shoreline protection. Our property merges with a river, which then merges with a lake, and the Wetlands Association that the wetlands controls that the state of Vermont has no issue with the mosquito dunks, which was very encouraging because I'm now using them personally on our property. But it's just reinforcing to know that it's not a hindrance and more than they support its usage, and that's great. But I think the catch basins also are essential.
Okay, thank you. Just trying to find my, okay. All right, well, thank you for that update. Good news on that. So Mitch Green, who runs the Sustainability Collaborative, I know some of you are more familiar with it than others, has reached out to me a few times this summer, really trying to make the collab more, more of a collaboration, basically with our environmental committee and with the Larchmont Environmental Committee. And I think that's all positive. So he is asking for us, whoever can, and I will attend their next meeting, which will be on August 6th. And their meetings are at 6 p.m. And they've been holding their meetings this summer actually out in Memorial Park, socially distanced. So I will, when I get more information, send it around. But if anybody wants to attend, everybody's welcome. And it's August 6th. And they basically, I think that they've done amazing work on a lot of different topics, some of which we've focused on, and some are new topics for us that we may want to get more involved with. One of which is 5G. So I'm sure most of you know something about 5G. And while, it'll maybe make our life better in a lot of ways, I think there's a lot of, health risks that people are worried about. So they formed a subcommittee, and 3 people have done just amazing work. And I forwarded everybody the documents. They put together a 3-page Q&A, just, questions and answers about, what is 5G and what are the potential health risks and what are other municipalities doing. So that's a really interesting read. I recommend everybody look at that. They also sent along a resource document, which is pages long and just, clicks on videos or articles or interviews, all around this topic, just really getting immersed in it, understanding it. And then the last document that was sent through was a model wireless telecommunications ordinance. So it's basically just sort of a template of if we were to try to adopt something. So I had asked Dan, and he sent through what we have sort of in our code now, which dates all the way back to 2002. So clearly it probably is time for us to relook at that, because a lot's happened in the telecom space since 2002. I think that was pre-iPhone. So, it's just looking at what our requirements are for, antennas to be put up in buildings, near schools, near residences, because 5G, by the way it works, is, smaller antennas that are more closely grouped together. So more of them. And I actually did a webinar a few months ago about 5G, and it was definitely enlightening and concerning, I have to say. So I just want to put that out there as something that the CoLab is really focused on. A lot of other municipalities are focusing on it. Some have already gone so far as to put in place ordinances. But if anybody's interested in just attending that meeting or being on this, subcommittee working group, just shoot me an email and I'll put you in touch, with the proper people for that. But I do highly recommend you look at the materials that I sent through. You'll learn a lot. Anybody want to comment on that or ask a question before I move on? Okay. The next thing that they're focused on are leaf blowers. And this is something that we've all focused on ourselves. So we've had many meetings where we've talked about leaf blowers. Mark Carell, our former committee member, was really, at the forefront of that. And so they really want to pursue, legislation that's uniform across the municipalities, in the town of Mamaroneck, Village of Larchville and Mamaroneck. And, basically they want to ban gas-powered leaf blowers, over a number of years and be stricter about the time frame that any leaf blower can be used. And I have to admit this topic wasn't really always of utmost importance to me, but now being home, I realize that it is really an intrusion. They're very noisy and it's all times of day and at times a year that you sort of question, like, why is this really necessary? So that is something that I think that we should, as a committee, when the time comes, be willing to put our names on, an ordinance that's consistent across. Because I think that what I think is really important about that is that a lot of the landscapers, they don't know where they are. They don't know, am I in the village, am I in the town? They just work in a certain zone, right? In a certain region of Westchester. They're not thinking, oh no, I'm in the village now. This is the ordinance here. I don't think that they're thinking about that. So if Dan, go.
Yeah, for the members of the committee, I just want to let them know what our local law is.
Okay.
We prohibit the use of gas-powered and electric blowers from, I believe it's May 15th through September 15th. So that's what it is in the Village of Mamaroneck. I think it might vary in the town and Larchmont. So.
Right, and I don't think that anybody as of today is completely banning gas powered, but that's the direction that I know the collaborative is headed in. And I know we present a possible hardship to some maybe smaller landscapers, but I would support that, as a phase-in. Are you guys raising your hands to show support, or do you want to say something? Go ahead, Martin.
So, I've been on this committee for a while, and this has been a topic that we've talked to ad nauseum for years and years. I think we're all sort of like behind this thing. And, making the laws better is great and all that kind of stuff. I still believe that our main issue is not the law itself, it's the enforcement. And, and just for example, just last week we had landscapers next door to our house and louder than probably the loudest leaf blower I've ever heard this guy had strapped to his back. And my wife was out there screaming at the top of her lungs, trying to get the guy's attention to tell him that you're not allowed to use one, and eventually got his attention only for him to say, yeah, I know we're not allowed to use them. I'm just going to use it quick. And then I'll be out of here. And, that's the situation most of the time, is that they're not using it for a long period of time, but they're still using it, and not long enough for us to call the cops and get a cop come out and write a ticket and do whatever. So how do we combat the enforcement issue? I think that's the bigger problem for us than the wording of the law. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Dave Styler, did you want to? Dave, unmute.
Oh, okay. I was saying, Christy, go ahead, but I unmuted.
I just don't, enforcement is one thing. And again, I'm not there but I can tell you, I can barely have conversations with people in the community because they can't go outside for very long because at some point a leaf blower will be in the background or a maintenance crew. But I mean, can we also, let's focus on adherence to the law, but it's also like, I think we need some community education. This is completely unnecessary. And I think people will start be paying attention because they're now home all the time in the same way that you are, and you're sensing it. It's like intense. It's on your head and it's nonstop. Maybe, maybe now's the time to take this opportunity to say, this is completely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
I think unfortunately a lot of homeowners rather than use it, even if it's during the time it's not allowed, just to have everything manicured. So I think enforcement is right. It's like you have to be, as a person who sees it, there has to be some way of some enforcement. I don't know. Can we report it afterwards and where something will be done after the fact without the police coming? I don't think we can rely on homeowners.
I mean,
There has to be a way to report it with like a video. Like you can video somebody doing something,
Exactly.
report it, and then still have them be held accountable in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
can I just, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, you know, after Jerry made that robocall up, I think it actually helped. And I think it would be a really good idea if Jerry kept doing it through the season, just to remind everybody. I thought that it diminished a little bit. That, I mean, they're still doing a little cheating, but it's just not, you know, I'm sure like what Martin said, you know, it happens still where you have these oafs who are doing it. But I think it's a little better this year. And I think, you know, I was reading the memo from the collaborative, and, you know, their whole thing, Martin, also is, you know, what do you do for the enforcement? They're thinking, if you read the memo, that you find I don't know how this could actually be done. I don't think that's the best thing, but you find the landscaper and you find the homeowner. But first, the homeowner gets a warning first instead of a fine, but the landscaper gets it. But, you know, and maybe David Freeman could talk about that as like, is this legal, all this stuff? But, you know, I think that we've never really had a dollar figure. And did Jerry, Dan Sarnoff, did Jerry put in a dollar figure for the fine, or Dan matches?
I think it's in the code. It's probably $250, but I can check. I think when David Finch was trustee Finch, we amended the leaf blower law, maybe it was before he was on the board, and we can fine both the company and the homeowner. That's what our code allows for.
Huh.
But again, as you're all bringing up, it's the enforcement is always the sticky wicket, and it's the same issue in most every community in Westchester that has a leaf blower ban.
What do we do in terms of educating the landscapers? Do we have a program to do that?
I think we generally give warnings, but I mean, I can follow up on that.
I'm not talking about ad hoc warnings. I'm talking about, do we have any kind of organized program to advise landscapers who work in our community about these restrictions?
We talk about, but it's not been done.
Yeah,
I know about it.
I can just chime in a little bit here on this point. So, and you know, this, to my knowledge, I don't think this was done before, but in the e-blasts that were coming out from my desk, as well as through the village's social media channels, I was putting up announcements about the leaf blower ban about a week, a couple of days, the day before, the day of, and even afterwards, saying the same message over and over again, that this law is going into effect. I just sent out the link, actually. It was from May 15th is when it's leaf blowers are prohibited, and it goes until September 30th. I can't, since this is the first time that I've been kind of being the village's voice and getting this message out there, I can't compare it to what it's been like in the past, but I know that there were a lot of unpleasant, unnice things that were said when I shared that post on various social media groups. People are upset about it. It does certainly cause for a lot of anger. I think I'll leave it at there.
Can I just ask what the motive of anger is? Is it because I don't want someone to tell me what to do? I don't want someone to mess with my business. I don't want someone to tell me how I should control my yard?
Yeah.
With all of the above?
Yeah.
Dave Finch?
Two comments. One that's come to my mind as we've been talking about the defunding the police made me think about whether asking our police to enforce this is an appropriate role of our police force. That's a conceptual thing. They're serve and protect. I'm not sure enforcing a leaf blower law was something we should be calling, 911 about. That's just something that's very topical, and I was questioning it. The more specific one is, I heard the question a couple of times, why is it necessary? In June, on my 100-foot long gravel driveway, I have a catalpa tree. And if you are blessed with a catalpa tree, you will know that in June, it drops a ton of very beautiful orchid-like blossoms underneath it that cannot be left till September. They will destroy the integrity of my gravel driveway. I must blow them off before they die and clump. Have to do it. So I know my neighbors. I'm not going to rat on them. They're not going to rat on me. And so I can blow them off. But I sort of feel a guilty pang, but I have no alternative. Yes, it's corded electric. It's quite quiet. But the question was said, why is it necessary? For this one homeowner in a very limited circumstance, it's absolutely necessary.
Dan?
Is the ban on gas only or electric and gas?
Everything.
And gas.
Gas, electric, the type of leaf blower that sucks in the leaves.
But the collaborative or the agenda that was sent out about leaf blowers, wasn't that just, was it for gas only? They were saying that electric was fine. They were sort of proposing for electric, right?
Well, what they're saying is that there will always be a period of time
Right.
during the summer months where you won't have any leaf blowers.
Got it.
But that when leaf blower use is permitted, it would need to be electric because they want to ban gas altogether because it's a horrible pollutant.
Right. No.
I mean, Dave Finch, I have a similar situation where I have a neighbor's tree that overhangs my deck. And also in the month of June, I don't know my trees as well as you, but stuff drops that if we didn't do something about it, it's so insidious and it gets into a powder and we would just be sneezing our heads off all day long. So we would have no use of our deck whatsoever. So it is tricky because there are specific homeowner issues, but maybe we address that by people gaining exemptions. Maybe rather than it just being a free for all, that there be, legitimate exemptions for limited use, limited time. Because as I said, I have like a 2 or 3 year period with that tree that it's crazy. I mean, people should be able to enjoy their homes, right? You should be able to have enjoyment of a deck or a front yard or whatever. But I think that I agree with trying to phase out the gas-powered ones because I think that they're horrible pollutants. They're not good for the workers and they're not good for the homeowners. And I just don't know what the cost is to the landscaping companies, you know, and we've heard things about that, you know, the electric charge isn't really enough for them to do their day's work. You know, there are things that need to be considered. So it just, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead. Martin, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you were calling me. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this too, whether there would be a way to certify the landscapers, or, you know, have a educational campaign with the landscapers so that they're all aware of what's going on. But as I'm telling you, this landscaping company, they knew it. They knew that they weren't supposed to be using it.
Right.
And they did it anyway because
Right.
they felt that they could do it in the small enough window and get away with it.
Right. That's right.
You know, I do think though that a lot of people on this call talked about how during this time frame being home, we spent more time in our yards. We've done gardening. I actually have my first garden, which thank you, Dave Finch, for those starter tomato plants. And I little did I know I have a green thumb. I've had the most gorgeous zucchinis this summer. So I feel like this could be a time where people will assess maybe how do I need to do that? Or, you know, are there different ways that I could do lawn care that are healthier, that are less, you know, lower maintenance? It could be a good time for education, because I agree. I don't really love the idea of police knocking at your door and giving out, you know, fines. That's not something that I really would be so much in favor of. Tim, you want to add something?
I just want to ask a quick question to those who've been in the group longer than me and know where this came from. Was the original, the ban, the May to September ban, was there an underlying like environmental issue that it was addressing, or was it a quality of life, like in the village, reason to have them banned during the summer months?
There's a little of both, actually, because people have their windows open, so it's blowing dust into your house and all kind of particulates and things like that. That's the health part of it, but it's also the noise because you have your windows open during that span.
Yeah, the main one that I was aware of course, is the dust and the nature of the terrible stuff that's in that dust. That affects children, affects asthma sufferers, and it doesn't matter whether it's gas or electric or whatever, it's still the dust, and that's a strong determinant.
Got it. Yeah, I would just say from my own personal experience too, I get that reasoning in the summer months and support that too. I would definitely be in support also of a broader ban on all gasoline equipment. Spent Saturday morning with 2-stroke exhaust blown into my bedroom with my 3-month-old, you know, from somebody who, you know, our neighbor needed to run the hedge trimmer, you know, at 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday. So, and I also don't buy the idea that electric equipment isn't up to snuff for somebody to be running professional equipment too. So just would voice my support of that.
Yeah, as a new parent, I'm sure you're hypersensitive to all that stuff right now, and
and it's a dense, you know, I'm near the village, so it's still pretty dense. So when somebody's doing that, you know, that is, we're close proximity, right? So that hedge is literally 3-4 feet from our house too. So it's not a big palatial estate where there isn't much effect on the community around it.
Okay. All right. So more to come on that, but as I said, I think that we should just be ready to, you know, work with the collaborative on that. And if anybody wants to have a seat at the table, again, I would suggest trying to attend the August 6th meeting and getting more plugged in to the collaborative, which I'm happy to help guide that if you need my help with that. The last thing they asked for our involvement on, which I'm less clear, is I guess, you know, we've had, you know, we're in the midst of doing our comprehensive plan update. which, by the way, Neil Desai was not available tonight because we did invite him to the meeting. So for Tim and Dan, you may not even know this, but the village is in the midst of doing the comprehensive plan update, which is done every, I think, 5 or 10 years, maybe 10 years, Dan. And there's a chapter on sustainability that we've been quite involved with, especially Dave Friedman. So we want to get an update. The bottom line is I don't think much has happened in the last few months, but there will be another round of it, and we will see the next draft shortly, and we'll have asked for our comments on that when that comes out. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, I think the town of Mamaroneck they're embarking on their comprehensive plan. So they wanted to just talk about ideas about, schools, housing affordability, Boston Post Road. So these are big issues that maybe are just not, contained in the town because it spills into the village as well. So happy to, work with them on that, or, Dan and Jerry, I'm sure they'll come to you for thoughts and ideas. Okay. And then just next was something that I sent something around, I think a week or so ago, that I had been walking from my house to the harbor and just noticed so much trash. It was low tide. I noticed so much trash, down into the harbor, and it was upsetting. And so I reached out to Jerry, and probably most of you know Kyle Troy, who runs the Marine Education Center. And so anyway, the Marine Education Center, every Friday at 3:30, they do a cleanup from Harbor Island Park. And so she's very open to, people working with her, helping with groups. So if anybody wants to, get a group together or do something like that, she's very open to working with us as a committee. And I'll probably be working with her. But it was just, because we are out and about and we are using up public spaces more. And it just was upsetting to me that people are just throwing trash in the harbor or even along the grassy path when you're walking along Boston Post Road, there's a patch of grass. It was so much trash. It bothered me. Hey, Dave.
Hi, I'd say, a lot of people are coming up here just to escape from the city, escape from, their homes, and they're not really necessarily natives here, or, I do think so. And I was telling you about my marshlands experience where it was really trashed out. Trails were sort of really degraded, and, and there are a lot of PPEs, as Martin said earlier, like just all over the place, gloves and masks. In fact, they're on the streets around Rhinebeck, where I am, you just see them. But I think a lot of people just like they run outdoors and they just get out of their houses and they don't have they have to take their kids someplace and they just go for someplace, but they're not, I guess, maybe in the habit of doing these things. And I think they just get outside and they just don't think about the fact that they're littering. But I do think it's a problem, right? Biggest problem I've ever seen here. Trash.
It is. I mean, I was sort of like starting to think, like, do we have enough trash bins for people to put their trash in? I mean, why are people just throwing stuff on the floor? I don't know.
Those are slobs.
I mean, the fact that, they're doing a cleanup weekly at the harbor, and yet there was still so much trash.
Yeah, one project that I'm actually trying to get off the ground, and I'm in the very early stages of it, is trying to figure out how to get us one of those things that's in the Baltimore harbor that actually collects trash off of the river and out of the water itself, that could be put at Boston Post Road where the Mamaroneck River comes out, and it basically just skims the top of the water and takes the trash off. So that's one of the projects that I'm hoping to get initiated here in the village, but it's a long way off.
Oh, well, that would be nice. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Dan, did you want to comment?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw you raise your hand. Dave Finch?
Yeah, I think Martin was raising a question that was in my mind, is do we know how much of this trash, proportions or anything, are coming in through the the storm drains and the rivers, and how much of it is local to the harbor? Because obviously how you treat it, how you find it, knowing that makes a difference. If you can collect it as it comes out the storm drains or down through the river, it's different from if it's coming in through the tidal movement. And I just wondered if we even know.
Just to throw this out, because I've had some prior conversations, and Martin, you probably know a lot more about this, but my understanding is that Kyle has been documenting heavy rains means more trash, and same with the harbor master. They can't keep up with the amount that basically comes down the river. Now, the Long Island Sound, of course, there's balloons, you know, a go-go on any normal year, and this is an abnormal year, so I can imagine you're seeing so many more, but they're so upsetting because they don't go away. But I think the real focus is down the river. I don't, you know, we get what we get from Long Island, but I think a lot of it comes from the river specific. That's my 2 cents, but that's also what I've heard, but I'd love some reinforcement.
It does, because it comes from all the way upstream. So, you know, every community is basically washing their stuff off of the street into the storm drains and into the waterways, and then it all ends up in the sound eventually. So that's why something right at the mouth of Mamaroneck River would, I'm not saying it would solve the whole problem, but it could make a significant dent. And if you look at these things, especially the one in Baltimore Harbor, it collects more than you would think, you know, because, you know, we see what actually sticks, but we don't see everything that goes out all the way out into the middle of the sound. But
And small particulates.
yeah, small particulates, but also like bottles and different things like that. Like the only thing we see is what sticks to the shore, like what Ellen was saying. Like you see what's along the edge of the thing, but I guarantee you that 10 times more of trash went straight out to the sound and is now in the gyre in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, and just for perspective again, the East Basin, where the Mamaroneck River, you know, drains to, the Sheldrake drains to, you know, a lot of Rhinebeck drains to. It's a 30 square mile watershed that's draining to that location. It's a huge, huge area, all the way up to the county airport. So just to give you some idea of how large it actually is.
Right, exactly. Thanks, Dan.
Martin, are you communicating with Save the Sound or any of the other people who are monitoring other trash inputs into the sound?
I actually work for Save the Sound. So yes, so yes, that's what I was saying. We're on top of it, and it's one of the projects that I'm trying to get funding for and get a grant written for, and get it off the ground. But again, it's hard to get all those resources together. Director has actually, I've talked to them, Director Shipyards. They've actually offered to help fabricate. But again, it's also it's getting all the funding together because it's not cheap to make the thing, and then somebody has to maintain it. So then an agreement's going to have to be worked out with the village, and there's a lot of things. So, but it's one of my dreams because I live right here on the Mamaroneck River, so I watch stuff flow by all the time. You know, so.
Well, how did Baltimore go about getting that?
Same kind of thing. It was a community group got interested, and they got funding for it, and then some guys built it using plans that I think the 4Ocean group, which are the ones that do those bracelets from the found plastic stuff. Yeah, I think they're the ones that pioneered this kind of technology. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but yeah, I invite you all to look into it because it's like a little conveyor belt that sort of sits just below the surface of the water.
I mean, if you could send us a link, I mean, maybe we could do some fundraising. I mean, I think that sounds great.
Sure, definitely. Okay. More the merrier.
And just to throw one more random thing out, TerraCycle, you know them. A long time ago, back in the day, I you know, they have funding and resources for shoreline clearing. It might be worth just checking with them what's going on. I know they're getting more and more active and more opportunities. You know, there's money available through them for shoreline specific protections.
Okay. Thank you. All right, well, the final thing on our agenda is to review the food waste stats. So Robert put together this chart. Robert, are you able to put up the chart?
Let me see if I can share it here.
Yeah, because I don't have screen sharing, but I mean, the trend is sort of, I guess what you would expect is that the tonnage went up during this pandemic. So, you know, you'd expect that people are at home more, they're cooking more, they're eating at home more, and producing.
Can you
more
all see
food
it?
at home.
Are you able to see it?
I can see, yes. Everyone can everyone see that? Yeah. So, I mean, June, actually, we reached the highest level of about 5.6 tons of food waste collected, which is great. So the yellow line is the second year of operation of this program compared to the first year in the blue line. So you see the program is obviously, you know, taken off year over year, but it's also, we've had a bump up given the stay at home. And one thing I'm curious about, but I reached out to Tony and the DPW, I didn't get an answer, is, I mean, my guess is that it's existing users of the program who would just have more food waste from being at home versus new people using the program. I don't know how many new people have come into the program in the past, you know, 3 or 4 months. I mean, we haven't done any, obviously, we haven't been able to, you know, do any events, be it, there's no farmer's market, there's no way for us to be out there selling. I don't know how many people on their own go into the DPW or through the website or whatever, get their own kits. But it'd be interesting to just know if there is additional adoption of the program, if it's all just existing users. But, you know, regardless, it's good to see that there's more use of the program.
Do we have any idea of how much money this is either saving net or costing the village to have this program versus having this waste disposed of in the old way, which is in the garbage?
I don't know that answer. Dan, do you have any idea?
I don't know the answer. I could imagine putting together a formula to try and figure it out.
Yeah, you know, before the pandemic, my recollection was that Westchester County was going to start paying for the carting up to Ulster. So for us, it would be sort of a, you know, we would be, that would be a benefit. But I don't know if that ever happened. I mean, I remember going to a meeting at the county center about that. I think it must have been January, February, where they were talking about providing the carting for each individual municipality. And the reason for that is because obviously, you know, places like Scarsdale and Rye and Mamaroneck, Larchmont, we're all doing this, but there's, you know, lower income areas that just couldn't afford it. And he wanted it to be, you know, across the board for Westchester to be having, you know, food waste disposal. So I don't know if that ever happened.
Is that an inquiry somebody could make with George Latimer's office to see where that's?
I could try to find out about that. I had forgotten about it, frankly, until we were just talking about it now.
So I just found something about this trash. It's called Mr. Trash. So it's been doing so well in Baltimore that now they have 4 of them.
Oh, wow.
So I'll send her, I'll post a link to the chat.
Thank you. Oh, could you just send us the link in an email?
Okay.
Thank you, that would be better.
Hey, Robert, I'm not able to see your screen. Is there somewhere else where I could see that information, or is it possible to like just get a screen grab sent to the group after the fact?
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can take a picture of this.
Will the, there at the, you know, recycling, will they be going back to normal hours? Or open on Saturdays? If anyone,
I don't know.
Dan, do you know?
I can talk to Tony.
Yeah, especially Saturday. I keep forgetting it's closed. I get there and have to bring it back home.
Oh, that's so tough.
I still take it because, you know, I have a small family, so it's not like a crazy amount. So,
Yeah, I love those ASAP guys. It's been
yeah.
a game changer because every time I drove into that DPW, I would get bird crap all over my car. They're saving me trips to a car wash.
Yeah.
But you know, they're doing. I think they're doing a great service for the community. I mean, I see now. It's interesting because I walk a lot, and I'm seeing. You know, they do their pickups now on Friday morning because the center's closed on Saturdays, and you just see all these bins out on Friday mornings. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all I had. I don't know if anybody else had anything they wanted to add.
Yeah, I wanted to mention the litter because we got an email from someone that said, you know, coming off the highway onto Fenimore, I think that was the one that they were talking about. There was so much litter, and I wonder if there's any way we can address it, or if, you know, the village can, or do we want to kind of try to put groups together to do some cleaning in other areas? Everyone's complaining about the litter. Maybe we can do something. I don't know exactly, but if anybody has ideas, you know, with the PPE and, you know, I mean, I mean, with the highway, it's a little bit difficult. Maybe Dan, you can have them check it out. Did you see the email from a resident saying that there was such a buildup of litter? It was off the 95, correct? Ellen?
I think so. That somebody, a resident, emailed the CFTE, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Saying,
I don't believe I got it. I mean, I may have, but if you want to forward a copy to me, I'll take a look at it.
okay. Yeah, let me see.
Do you remember that person's name, Maria?
Let me see if I can see it here. They sent it to us. It was litter from our village. I don't know if that was, oh, no, that was you. But it's in here. They wrote it to the Committee for the Environment, so I'll find it.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
go back to that too. That sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, here it says Christopher Marone.
What's the name?
Christopher Marone. And they said the I-95 ramp litter has an enormous amount of litter and is a terrible way for us to represent our community as people travel on and off the highway. Is there any way to organize a cleanup?
Okay.
So, I mean, the highway, usually, you know, it's the DPW that does it because we try not to go on highways, I remember. But maybe we can organize something. I mean, even if it's not the highway.
Right, but I mean, that's a good point. It's like, that shouldn't be. I don't know who's responsible for that. Is that the
New York
department?
State Thruway Authority.
It's the Thruway Authority.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay.
And they should be responsible. We can follow up.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with cleanup now, Maria, I guess obviously we'll wear gloves and all that is, you know, the wanting to actually come in contact with something like a bottle that somebody else drank from or somebody, you know, it's just.
Well, you wear gloves. I mean, you go to the supermarket, you touch things that everyone's touched. You know, what's the difference? And you're probably not wearing gloves at the supermarket. Whereas if you're doing litter pickup, you're definitely going to wear gloves.
Right, right.
You know?
Yeah, well, I told Kyle that we could coordinate something. So if you're interested,
Yeah, I'm interested.
And she said, yeah, she's happy to help us, you know, because she has the, you know, she has the stuff. She has the gloves and materials and whatever, you know, to do the cleanup because they do it all the time.
So you're not meaning just the harbor, you're meaning just anywhere.
Well, I actually, you know, as I said, it was down in the harbor. It was also like along the when you're walking on Boston Post Road, it was on the grass along the sidewalk. And yeah, it was just around the village.
Right, right.
And I guess it is because more people are coming up and people using outdoor space. And I know that, you know, baseball games are now back in full
Maybe
swing.
we can, everybody likes to walk. You walk a lot. I like to walk. We can form a walking group that is equipped to pick up litter.
Yeah, let's do it. I love it.
I'll do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, I'll get other friends, you get people, and we'll just, yeah, do it together. You know, you need a bag, gloves, a mask.
Right.
You know, whatever we can do, it's something.
It's something, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we go, I just want to deal with one sort of annoying housekeeping issue, which is that Tim and Dan, I don't know what it's going to take for you guys to get into our email group. I don't know how many more requests I can put in, but what is going on with that?
I mean, I'm getting some of them, and I get them from you, some of them from you, but
Well, because what happens is when every time I'm told it's resolved, I'm told it's fixed, I send to the CFT.
Robert,
and then
is this something that you
back
can,
to you and Tim.
this is Dan Natchez. Robert, is that something that you can handle with Sally?
Yeah, let me talk with Cliff. I don't have access to the email listservs for those sorts of things.
Okay, let's see if we can follow up on that, okay?
And Dan, you get the CFTE emails, right?
I believe.
So Dan Natchez.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I just can't always remember to send it to you guys separately, but to have a functioning group, we need everybody in that
I
email.
understand, but if Robert can talk with, you know, Cliff and Sally and get it straightened out, I think that it's not a big deal to do.
Okay.
I'll look into it and try to get to the bottom of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So any last comments from anybody?
No. Dan, would you mind letting us know what the highway department says? If that's something like that they'll take care of, I don't know how it works. I'm just curious.
It might be something we'll just have to report to the state authority, but I'll find out and I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There were, I don't know if folks might have seen the email that I sent, but there were two items on there that I thought might be of interest to folks in this group. With everyone doing gardening, State Senator Shelley Mayer is having like a photo contest where you can submit pictures of your garden, and you could win having a dinner with her in a restaurant, a local restaurant. There's information about that on our website. And then also, I think at the upcoming August Board of Trustee meetings, the first one, there's going to be a presentation made by Sustainability Westchester about, I think it's the energy program that the village is part of. So I just thought that those were two things that folks might be, in this group, might be particularly interested in. That's all.
I remembered one thing, the community garden. So I've walked by there and I see there's quite a few still plots left. And I knew someone that was interested. Who's in charge of that? How do they get a key so that they're able to participate?
That's done through the manager's office.
So
it's been a while. I was never that involved with it, but I think there's an application for the plots. I know that we had some interest from non-residents and we declined.
Yeah, this is from a resident, and she was very interested. And she has a house, but I think that it's just a nice idea because she's always walking. And it's something for her to do, just to get out of the house and not do it in her backyard. So can you send me the application? Who would I contact?
I'll follow up on that. I'm out of the office tomorrow. I'll follow up on Thursday.
Put it on your list, your long list, Dan. Thank you. Thank you.
Just going back to the highway, what was the agency that's responsible for that?
New York State Thruway Authority.
Oh, thank you. I'm just responding to that person since we never did.
Oh, good.
I appreciate your
They were out this morning trimming trees going from Mamaroneck Avenue on that entryway up onto 95 going south. So they do maintain something.
Right.
Okay. All right, well, I guess, motion to adjourn the meeting. And everyone enjoy the rest of your summer. I guess we could see each other back in August. Martin, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we usually don't have a meeting in August, so that's why that was going to be my question.
Okay. Well,
Are we having one?
I mean, we usually don't, but we hadn't had one in 4 months, but, you know,
We can be anywhere. Everyone used to go away. Now we have Zoom.
Yeah, I'm just saying all the other committee meetings for the village
Yeah.
they don't have a meeting during August.
So we'll ask Sally.
Well, I'm happy to reconvene for a social then.
Yeah, I am too. I'm just bringing that up that we everything else is closed down for August.
okay. So I'm indifferent. I mean, this was very easy. We're ending early. We could meet, we could not meet.
I think
That's
it's up to Sally probably and
Okay.
them to decide.
So Robert, you could let us know if we're scheduled for a meeting or not, if we should just push it off to September.
It's up to you guys. If you want to have a meeting, you can have a meeting. If you don't want to have a meeting, there doesn't have to be a meeting.
Well, let's do this. I mean, I'm going to attend the CoLab meeting on August 6th. And if there's something that I think that this, momentum on, I'd rather not wait, so let's just see what sort of comes out of that. And again, if anybody is around and wants to come to that.
I'm going to plan on going.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds nice. It's, at the park, it's socially distant, people see people, and it's a great group of really just dedicated, smart people. So if anybody has not been to a CoLab meeting, I highly recommend it.
Great. Thanks for letting us know.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. As I
All
see
right, everybody. Stay well.
All right.
Bye.
Great to see
Bye.
everyone.
Say same here. Bye.
Bye-bye.